recording.
Prehistoric France was a time of when early humans inhabited France during the prehistoric era. However, it ended during the Iron Age, and the earliest of humans that inhabited southwestern France were the Neanderthals during 300,000 BC. However, they died out by 30,000 BC because they weren't able to compete with modern humans due to cold weather conditions. The Lascaux is a complex series of caves which consist of Paleolithic paintings, and the original ones are in Montignac, a village in southwestern France. And the earliest domestication of fire found in France was in Terra Amata, which was around 400,000 BC. And that's it. We're good? Is that a minute? I'm scared.
That's it. I didn't do anything.
That wasn't fun.
Just stare.
I was just staring.
Okay, so William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror is a Scandinavian and he was from Normandy. When William the Conqueror was only 8 years old, his father died. And it just so happened that his father was the Duke of Normandy at the time. So with his death, William rose to become the new Duke of Normandy. After a while, fast forward a bit, when he was, William would travel to England to visit his cousin, the King of England, King Edward. When he did visit his cousin, King Edward promised him the crown upon his death. But it just so happens that there was someone else waiting in line for the crown who had a much better chance of gaining the crown than William did. He was Harold Saxon. And so what does William do? Well, he does what any sensible man would do. He takes him prisoner. So after taking Harold prisoner, he offers him a proposal. He gains his freedom if he gives William the crown. So Harold accepts the proposal, he gains his freedom, and forgets about the promise he made with William. So when King Edward dies, when King Edward dies in the year 1066, Harold claims the crown for himself and becomes the new King of England. William was not happy about that, so what he does is he decides that he's going to conquer England by force. So on September 23rd, William.
Jeanne d'Arc, she was a person that was born in January the 6th in the year 1412. Her goals in life was to help King Charles VII to get back France from Britain. In her years after the 100-Year War, she was called the Maiden of New Orleans for her services. In May 23rd of the year 1431, she was captured in Normandy and sent to British for her acts against England. And at the date May 30, she died in the year 1431 at the age of 19.
Oh.
Just kidding. William. Wait, why am I saying William? Oh my, I just messed up. Oh my. Can we,
Just go.
Just go.
Louis XIV, that's one. Louis XIV. Let's see. Le Roi Soleil. Sun King. That's what that means. Sun King. He was the Sun King. That's what he was called, at least. He threw lavish parties in which the nobility wanted to be invited to, and he had two kinds of nobility that joined him in his reign of absolute monarchy. He had nobility of the robes and nobility of the sword. Nobility of the sword were people that were able to buy their way into nobility, and nobility of the robes were people that were born into the nobility. He created Le Chateau de Versailles, which is the Versailles Palace, and inside of this palace, it was massive. He had gold, he had marble, he had pearls everywhere. It was amazing. It was beautiful. It was incredible. So all the nobles, they wanted to be on his good side because he threw these grand parties. And when he threw these grand parties, if you were invited, you were basically cool with Louis XIV. But if you weren't invited, you weren't cool. And everybody wanted to be on his good side. What else?
Alright, there you go.
So French Revolution started with the three estates who came together to discuss the problems that they were having because France was in debt, because they funded the American Revolution, and because Louis XIV was throwing lavish parties, so they didn't have a lot of money. And they were discussing what they should do, and the first and second estate were the rich and middle class, and they didn't agree with the third estate, so they locked them out of where they were having their meeting. And the third estate still wanted change and stuff, so they created the National Assembly, where they wrote up the Declaration of Rights of Man, which basically said that every citizen was created equal and that everyone had equal rights. And so they wanted a constitutional monarchy, but because of rumors arising about the Queen, the Women's March happened, so the women stormed the castle of Versailles, and they marched the King and Queen back to Paris, where they were basically held under arrest. And so they were there, and the revolution was still going on, and other countries saw the revolutionist France as a threat because they didn't want revolutions happening in their countries. So they decided to help out the king and help him escape, but he couldn't. When he almost did, he was marched back, he was caught and executed, and this just unleashed a great violence in France called the Great Terror. And because of this, everything just went bad, and during this time, France was not only having their own revolutions, but was in war against other countries, which Napoleon led the armies, and he had a lot of victories. And because of this, when he came back to Paris, everyone praised him, and then he became the leader of France, which then ended the revolution.
Wait, can you guys not look at me? Okay. The French Revolution is a key moment in the political culture. This event became significant political culture in Europe of France, but in Europe and around the world. The action and idea were great because of the horrible battlefield, the church bishops, and the church bishops and priests were elected by the people. The history of the French Revolution was glorious because the history of the French Revolution was glorious, just like the day after victory.
That's it?
From the group, please. So Napoleon III, he was the only president to be elected not only by the people, but was the only president. He was the president of the Second Republic, and this was really important because he was elected by popular demand, and something that the people of France were able to convince themselves to vote for him was that he promised to end poverty and just overall improve the lives of ordinary people. And some other things that happened during his administration were things where the banking system, the French banking system, was modernized, the railway system was expanded, and there was also modernization in agriculture, which is important because it helped end famines. And another thing that happened was education was improved. So, like for example, women's education especially was greatly expanded. And something also, he was the person who commissioned the reconstruction of France. And so the reconstruction of France happened around the 1850s through 1870s. That's when it roughly ended. And Napoleon III appointed Usman to lead this, to construct this, and it consisted of 3 phases. And examples of during that phase was that like new boulevards were added, like around 6 miles. And like I remember, his 3rd phase also consisted of an additional 28 kilometers of new boulevards, and actually under new projects were conducted under that 3rd phase. So like an example being Champs-Élysées, and just other things that happened during the reconstruction of Paris, where new sewers were added to Paris. Other things like new parks were added, and overall just the reconstruction of France was all about modernizing Paris, and it helped to lead to what it is now.